This week, we do our best to help a listener improve their online dating profile by sharing what works for us and what doesn't. But first, is it okay to put conditions on love? And what conditions are acceptable? Welcome to the talking phase. Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Talking Phase podcast. My name is Tom. I am so excited for today's show. Pam is always here with me as my amazing and beautiful co-host. Pam, how you doing?
I am always here with you. Always. I am doing okay. I am still trying to tackle the end of this cold that seems like it will never go away. So you can hear that in my voice. But other than that, I am having a pretty stupendous day. I am still feeling the high from your visit this weekend and all of the great conversations on all of our future topics that we discussed and hanging out with the kids. And it was a really, really nice weekend. So I'm still thinking about that and just enjoying this week for all of its dullness ever since you left.
Well, that's awesome. And by the way, to be clear, the high she's speaking of is just the fun. We did not do any illegal drugs.
Shh.
Yeah.
That's nobody's business.
Yes, exactly. Well, I'll tell you what, we, after a couple of weeks on the road for me, that was one of the longest business trips I've ever been on. Well, that's not true. I've been on longer trips, but they were international. That's the longest domestic business trip I've ever been on. Spent a week in Utah, then, a week, 2 or 3 days in California, then a day in Washington, then back here to Atlanta for a week. And then, of course, I just flew a week later to North Carolina, spent the weekend with Pam. And then Brian and I have been in Salt Lake all week for work.
I'm exhausted.
Yes.
Listening to you.
Yeah. But I'll tell you what, when I was in Salt Lake, not this last couple of days, but a couple of weeks ago, I was able to spend some time with my kids. I think everybody knows that I was there for a family reunion and stuff like that. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that later because it created some feelings for me that are pretty strong. And we're going to talk about that. But before we get there, I think it's important. We need to find out how our friend Brian is. Brian, what's up?
Pam and Tom, I'm doing great. I love listening to the Talking Phase, by the way. I just want to put it out there. The show is so refreshing because I hear from folks that the number one thing they like to listen to is conversations about modern dating. And you guys give a perspective across the board. So I just want to give a plug for the show. You guys are crushing it.
Wow, you're plugging the show on the show. And what could be better than that? October, we could talk about, that could be better than, we could maybe record an episode out in a pumpkin patch because October is my favorite freaking month.
You and my wife will get along very well.
I love it. I love everything pumpkin pie, pumpkin coffee. Tom loves pumpkin. He can't get enough. I just went and bought 3 or 4 pumpkin pies for his next visit.
Well, I saw a TikTok just yesterday about this guy that does natural alfalfa, and he has his cows poop all over his field, and he literally said, I call them pumpkin pies because they look just like a pumpkin pie.
The best. They taste the best when
they
they're
look
warm.
Like cow shit in a tin. It's just awful.
It's
horrible.
The best. You know what? You guys need to send us a message and tell us whether you like pumpkin, because you can just tell me Tom's wrong. He likes peppermint candy and his cookies, but he doesn't like pumpkin.
Okay, I need to be very clear.
Cinnamon. Sorry. Peppermint. Whoops. I know.
Yeah.
I don't feel it's because of the throat, the cough, I'm a little slow.
Blame it on that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'll tell you what. I need to get to my family stuff. This has been eating me up inside. So we're going to get right to it, you guys. So as everybody who's listened to this show for the last couple of months, you know that I was in Salt Lake middle of August for my dad's 93rd birthday party, as well as what's called the cousin connection. So my mom was the oldest of 8 kids. Those 8 kids and their spouses all cranked out 49 grandkids. And we all grew up very close. And I am the number 5 of 6 children that my parents had. And 5 of us get along pretty well. The sixth one is a complete and absolute utter pile of shit. And I'm not just saying that because I dislike him. This is not about me like we had a sibling rivalry or anything. We grew up best friends. He's 18 months older than I am. We shared a bedroom most of my childhood. We worked together. We played together. We were best friends. But as you know, as we became adults, things have happened. His wife died of a very suspicious, let's just say there was suspicious nature in her death. He and his wife had six children, 3 naturally born children and 3 adopted children. When she died, suspiciously, my brother remarried almost immediately, and then literally through the legal process and other means abandoned his five of his 6 children. Just abandoned them. And talk about a piece of shit. I'm sorry, that just gets me all wired up. And I don't talk to him anymore. We don't have any communication. However, when you go to your dad's 93rd birthday, you put aside your hatred for someone, because this isn't about me. This isn't about him. This is about our dad. And so we showed up there. Now, what's funny is he doesn't hate me. I've given him no reason to hate me other than the fact that I think he's a total dick.
Which might be enough for some people.
True. But by the way, since he did abandon 5 of his 6 kids, I'm actually in touch with all 5 of those 6. The 6th child that he still communicates with won't talk to me because I'm communicating with his 5 siblings. So
interesting.
It sounds like almost our political life right now in this country is people just have chosen sides. And it just really kind of freaks me out. But the youngest of his 3 biological children lives close by, about an hour and a half south of me. So actually I'm going to go spend the weekend with him next weekend. Looking forward to that. But here's the thing about spending time with my brother. Like I said, there's 6 kids in the family. One of them passed away last year. So there are 5 remaining kids in our family. 4, well, I guess 3 of them associate with my brother, this piece of shit. And it's not like I'm sitting there walking around going, you need to shun him. But I do wonder why, after his wife died of suspicious circumstances and he abandoned his five of his 6 children, which, by the way, when you asked him, when he did this years ago, and I said, how in the world could you do that? His response is, I'm at peace with it.
Mm.
What a piece of shit. How can you ever be at peace with something like that? But anyway, when I ask my other siblings, how can you speak with him? And by the way, one of my brothers actually calls him for parenting advice. What the fuck is
God.
that? But I say, how can you have this relationship with him that seems like you're just ignoring all of these, raging red flags that you don't want to have this guy in your life? I get this response that, well, he's our brother, so we have to love him. I call bullshit, 100% bullshit on that. So there's my question to you, Pam, and to our listeners. Is love conditional? Should it be conditional? I don't love him, by the way. I don't anymore. I'm so pissed at him that I can't. And so is love conditional? And if it's conditional, is that really love?
Well, it's a great question. And ever since we brought up this topic and we kind of talked about it a little bit, it forces you to think about, the people that have been in your life. I mean, you grow up and you love your parents unconditionally. You don't have kids yet, friends come and go. That is definitely conditional. Boyfriends come and go. You're young. You say, I love you at 17 or 18, but do you mean it? I have no idea. But is love unconditional, and should it be unconditional, is such a humongous question. And I think that probably a lot of people listening to us are shaking their heads and saying, I don't want any kind of love that is not unconditional. We are brought up to believe that when we meet the person we're going to marry, we need to love them unconditionally. And if we love our spouse unconditionally, then does that mean that no matter how they treat us, they're deserving of our love and should have it, or not. And that is the question I kept coming back to, is that, yeah, I love my children unconditionally, and I love my parents unconditionally. That doesn't mean I don't get angry at my kids or at my dad. My mom passed away, but you know, my son or my daughter could probably rob a bank and do something horrible, and I am still going to love them. That is how I am wired. But do I love my ex-husband now? Not the way that I did when I was dating him or engaged to him or happily married to him. Um, did I agree to love him unconditionally in my wedding vows? I can't even remember, the sickness and health, for better or worse. I think that there's a limit. I think that it's okay to have conditions on loving people you didn't give birth to or weren't given birth to by them. So I don't think that I am a believer in unconditional love, period.
So if I could boil that down, some love should be unconditional, but only under certain conditions.
I didn't say should. That's me. That's how, I think that love is something that is earned, like trust. I think that you trust. A lot of people don't go into a relationship trusting somebody until it's earned. I trust somebody from the beginning until they do something to lose my trust. I think that love is kind of the same way. I think that I love somebody with my whole heart, but if they do something that is so hurtful to me that I don't want to be with them anymore, I feel like I give myself permission to not love them anymore. And that sounds like conditional love to me.
Well, yeah, but what you're saying though is that neither of your children could ever do anything horrible enough to make you not love them anymore. And that's not a snotty question.
No, I understand. I understand. And I suppose if they shot me in the head and killed me as I was dying, I'd probably be thinking I really regret loving. I'm watching the Menendez brothers documentary, or it's not actually a documentary, but it's the Netflix show. It's the Monster sequel. And so I'm watching that, and I just watched them kill both their parents. And I thought about this episode, and I was like, damn, there's no unconditional love in that family. They didn't love their parents unconditionally. Their parents might have loved them unconditionally, but when they were shooting them in the head, they probably were having second thoughts about that.
Is that the thing right there? Is it contextually conditional?
I think it is.
I think so. I think something happens to make you. I mean, if we're talking about family, Tom doesn't love his brother because of what his brother did. And had his brother not done those things, he would still love his brother. So I think there has to be conditions on love in most cases. And yeah, I do think that there are family members who fall outside of that definition, which might make me a little bit of a hypocrite. I love my sister. We don't have a great relationship. We don't talk very often, but when I say I love you to her, I feel like I love her. Maybe it's because she's my sister, but the emotion is still there. When I think about my ex-husband, I don't think, I still love him because love is unconditional. So therefore I loved him at one point, so I must still love him.
Well, Tom, and this is my thought, right? When I say contextual conditional, right? Because if your brother had robbed a bank, you'd probably still love your brother. But it's based on the fact of what he did with the family. That's where it really triggered you and set you off.
Well, for me, it comes down to it comes down to the fact that I just don't want this kind of a person in my life. One that could just so casually discard 5 of his 6 children without giving it a thought. And then saying he's at peace with it. This is just not the kind of person I want in my life. And then, a few other things that have happened, just more like, I mean, that right there means I don't want him in my life, but that's probably, yeah, you know what? I'm backing up. Yes, I hate him because of those things, because these kids didn't do anything to deserve what he did to them. And he basically disowned. Well, he disowned them all, but his biological children, he just said, fuck you, I never want to see you again. He sent 2 of his 3 adopted children back to their birth mothers. And they were adopted as infants. This is not like they were 12 when they were adopted. They were infants. They never knew their birth mothers. And his 3rd adopted child, he just stuck him in a home for boys because he couldn't find the birth mom. And he called the other 2 birth moms and said, hey, do you want your kid back? And if you don't, I'm going to put him in foster care. Just a heartless piece of shit. And so when I see the damage that he's done to those 5 kids, and it is a miracle that they are productive members of society. And all 5 of those kids, by the way, have found each other over the years, and have started to rebuild like the family relationship amongst the 5 of them. This happened 17 years ago. This is not like something that happened a few months ago. This is a 17-year-old story. And it's taken all of this time. Literally about 3 months ago is the first time the oldest sister, the oldest biological child, they had a FaceTime call with her sisters that had been sent back to their birth moms. That was just a couple of months ago. And it's just miraculous that it's taken this long. But he's at peace with the literal hell he put his children through. And that is just a piece of shit. And he does not deserve my love. As Pam was just saying, people earn love, and he does not deserve that love. So I, by the way, Pam, I feel exactly the same way about my children. I love them, and I can't imagine anything that they would do or could do to make me not love them. But I would take exception. I'm not sure I feel the same about my parents. I love my parents, but
it's conditional love.
I guess it's just not as you were very, very sure when you said I love my parents and that's unconditional. And for me, it's like, I don't know. I didn't choose them. I didn't choose to have them as my parents. I did choose to have my children, and they are part of me. And for me, that's just a little different feeling. And maybe I'm just a jackass for that.
I think we're all entitled to the way we feel. But I had a question while you were talking. I wondered, from a relationship standpoint, because you've also been married and you have been cheated on. So you have been really down the road with trust and love. And I'm sure that there was maybe a point in your marriage where you would have liked to believe that love was unconditional because things were really good. But how do you feel when it comes to romantic love? Do you still love her because you're supposed to, because she's the mother of your children? Or is love conditional in a relationship or a marriage?
I believe that marital love or romantic love is conditional. I think that the concept of I'm married, therefore I must love them. Right. I think that's an artificial. I don't think that's personally, I don't think that's possible to dictate that. It would be nice, but I was at Marshall's the other day, buying a jacket because I buy at the most expensive places, and this family or this camper van pulled up next to me, and I was just in the parking lot, and they pulled up next to me, and this woman got out, and I think they lived in this thing. That's just the impression I got, is that they lived in this camper van, and she was probably in her 40s or 50s, and she was wearing slippers, like fuzzy slippers, and she was walking in. And her husband, I assume, got out the other side and started yelling something at her. And he was like, why the fuck can't you just wait for me for just 2 minutes? And these two were just going at it. And I'm just sitting there going, do they love each other? Or is it just their own little brand of love? And it just seems like, again, looking in from the outside, it felt to me like here's a couple that's together because they're together, not because they love each other.
And then there's the whole love versus in love, where, you're married for a long time and you're fighting all the time and you're having all these discussions, and your significant other says, do you still love me? And the automatic response is, yes, of course I still love you. we have this whole life together. But it's such a significant difference between loving somebody and being in love with somebody. And I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with being in a relationship. I think most of us are perfectly happy once the butterflies are gone and we're comfortable and we're happy, and we know that we really love our partner, but that initial passion has faded. Are you in love? Or do you love them? Or is that love unconditional? People are always making videos and saying, I love him unconditionally. And I'm always thinking in my head, do you? Like, he could like beat the shit out of you and you'd be like, I love you, please stop beating the shit out of me. I mean, like, love should be conditional. It should be earned, I think.
But at the same time, while he's beating the shit out of her, he could be saying, I'm doing this because I love you so much.
And I see that. And like,
that's again, it's all about, that's where I think, that's a crock of shit. Cause obviously if someone's beating the shit out of you, they don't love you. And if someone's beating the shit out of you, you shouldn't love them back.
Right. No, I agree with you. And I loved growing up. I loved the idea of this great marriage or two that I was going to have that were unconditional. Like, I was going to be loved unconditionally. It didn't matter how I looked or how I acted or how I treated them. They had to love me unconditionally because I was in my 20s and very naive. And it's just not so. And nor should it be so. I believe that it should be earned every day. The trust, the love, I think that's what I hope for in my future, that when I am in love with somebody and whether it's in love or love, that they will always know that love comes with the understanding that it will exist as long as it is earned. That doesn't mean you have a fight and you stop loving that person, or you're like, hey, love is conditional. You better be nice to me, or you better treat me well, or you better do what I want you to do. It just means that it keeps us living our lives to a certain standard and treating people the way that they deserve to be treated instead of being lazy.
Well, I'll tell you what, I just had a thought. And when we're done with this, Brian, would you please put a link to my niece's TikTok in the show notes? One of these adopted girls of my brother, one of my brother's former daughters, I guess is the way to put that, made a long TikTok about her life through this project. I can't remember what the project is called, but it's, girls who've been abandoned and how they've overcome it. I think I sent it to you, Pam, like 2 months ago.
I saw it. It was amazing.
Yeah, it's insane. And of course I cried because it's my niece, but I think anybody who hears this is going to cry their eyes out. She's incredible. So I'd like to make sure that we push that out there if we can. And 100%. Brian just slacked me to say, remind me to send the TikTok for the show notes. So I will do that when we're done here.
I got you.
So with that, before we jump into our next segment, I want to make sure that everybody out there takes a minute, just 5 seconds right now. If you like what you're hearing, give us a quick rating and a review. If you think I'm being too harsh on my brother, well, you're wrong. But I'd like to know why you think that. If you think it's okay to abandon 5 of your 6 children, I'd like to know your justification for that. And give us a 5-star rating. Share this with your friends and family. And let's see. Before I think that's all I need to say about that. And I think we're ready for our next thing. I think something's supposed to happen about right now, though.
Yeah. You've got mail. Oh, magic. All right. So here we go. Hi, Pam and Tom. I first learned of the Talking Phase podcast when I randomly came across your many TikTok videos, which I thoroughly enjoy. Thank you very much. And then I started listening to the show as a result of that. Thus far, I'm in agreement with both of you, for the most part, on many valid points that you make, both online and on the show. And I appreciate the valuable perspectives you both bring to the table regarding dating in our 50s, relationships, and life in general. The problem, leading to my question, I continuously see women's dating profiles in which I feel they make a ton of mistakes and fail to put their best feet forward. The question is this: in your opinion, what are the essential components of excellent, well-crafted dating app profiles? And how should men and women best package, describe, and position themselves to attract high-quality matches regardless of the dating app. Thanks so much. Keep doing what you're doing. Best regards, Keith from Ventura, California. I'm all 2 men in one day, so hip hip hooray. Thank you for your email.
And we have a real name here.
Yes, which is rare. I see if you're on YouTube, you also see that there is a picture that has landed on your screen. So Tom is going to take the reel here.
Yeah. The first thing, his first question, by the way, I think it's funny the way he put that, is that they make a ton of mistakes. And
he's very critical.
Yes.
He told me what a lot of them he thought were. There's a whole paragraph I had to leave out. I told him where he went into very much detail about what they're doing wrong.
Right. Well,
women in general.
Okay. So first off, Keith, thank you for using your real name. I think that's always cool when we get a real name. Secondly, thank you for thinking we make valid points. Now, Brian has put up on the screen, for those who are just listening, we're going to take just a second and try and describe. In preparing for this episode, and I read this letter, I sent Brian, I think, 8 or 9 pictures, and we're going to try and show them here real quick. The first requirement, and I think that Keith said it best, they failed to put their best foot forward. Now, I don't want this to turn into a woman bashing thing, even though Keith is asking the question about women's profiles, but I only looked at women's profiles. So I've never looked at a man's profile. So all I can share are a couple of crazy things that I've seen and what I think women need to do in their profiles. And so Pam, jump in here and say men do the same thing or men do it worse or whatever. But since
I will try not to interrupt you too many times while you describe what women have done wrong.
Well, let's all just accept the premise that online dating, it's not really dating. I mean, you're not on a date. You're finding a date.
Right.
And so you're really window shopping.
Right.
I think you call it people shopping. I call it window shopping. And so those of you who are on YouTube, you see this, but those who are not, we're looking at a picture of someone named Pam, not the Pam as our wonderful co-host.
Certainly not.
Right. And there's no picture of Pam. So let's just start with actually being in the picture. I think that's not too much to ask. And instead, Pam's picture here is an uprooted and fallen over tree.
Which I think just is supposed to represent her life, but it's probably not going to get her swiped right.
Exactly. So whether it represents anything, it's a stupid thing to put in your dating profile. Brian, let's look at that next one. This is just another example of just being in the picture.
What is that?
To describe it, all we're not even seeing her forehead. We're seeing literally right where the hairline starts and above.
This is her best feature.
Yeah, it must be.
Her hair.
And it's not that attractive of hair, but
no, not so good.
So again, let's just start, since we're talking about pictures, we're going to get to the bios here in a second. But since we're talking about pictures, let's just start with actually being in the picture. Now, Laura here, maybe she was in this picture originally, but if she's not technically capable of actually shrinking it or zooming or cropping or whatever, that's a red flag too.
Don't use it.
Yeah, don't use that picture. All right.
And all of these things go for men too. You know, this is the same advice we would give a man.
Right. Absolutely. Well, the next one is please make your pictures clear, recent, close up, and include at least one full body. Now, you can say that men are pigs and that we only care if you're skinny and all that, but whatever. It's window shopping.
Right.
But this picture is of someone named Sandy, and it is, I can tell,
blurry AF.
And that's about all I know about her. Oh, she's a white lady, I think. But it's completely blurry. And I mean, it's almost as if she put one of these, just like behind me right here, this is blurry because I turned on the blur feature. It's like she blurred herself out on purpose.
This is a lot like Love at First Sight, the show, whatever, Love is Blind, because you'd have to be blind to swipe right on any of these people because you can't see them.
Yes, exactly. The next thing is group photos. If you want to put a group photo up there, That's okay. But let's take a look at this one here. This is a group photo of 3 women. Looks like one of them is the bride. The other 2 appear to be twins.
I can't see it well enough, but
they look like they're twins. I'm assuming that Marla is one of these 2 women on this picture. I don't know which one.
A bad idea to put up a group picture unless you have multiple pictures of yourself alone and you stand out in the group picture.
Right. But I have seen hundreds of profiles in my dating career that literally every picture is a group picture. And so you're going through and doing through process of elimination, having to figure out who somebody is.
No, you're right. And men do this also.
Yeah. I'm assuming. Yeah.
I have to
assume
they do it.
Yeah. And now this is a wedding picture. I think wedding pictures are kind of silly to put in a dating app, to be blunt. But speaking of wedding pictures, Brian, let's put up the next one. No, not that one.
Oh my goodness. What is that?
Well, we can get to that one next. Yeah, that one. Brenda here looks like she's getting married.
Oh, she does.
She's literally kissing somebody in the picture.
They're looking for a third.
I think that should go without saying. So, and I think she just got married. It looks as if she just got married.
They're definitely looking for a third with that picture.
Maybe, but whatever. Okay. Now let's look at the next one. So I've said this before. One of my biggest pet peeves about, well, not pet peeves, one of my icks, as you like to call them.
I love icks.
Is when every single picture on a dating app or a dating profile is of the woman doing some hardcore activity like skydiving, paddleboarding, marathoning. I mean, it's great that you do that, but you know what? That's not your entire life.
And you ain't seen nothing till you see what men do activity wise on their dating profile. It's got to be a showing off thing. Like, look at me, look at how athletic I am, look at how daring I am. That's the only thing. I don't have any of those pictures because I don't do anything daring, but that's got to be the reason why these pictures exist.
I think it's great. If you're putting up 6 or 8 pictures, if 1 or 2 of them are you doing some physical activity, awesome. But the rest of them should just be, I need to see what you look like. I don't care.
That's all anybody cares about. Nobody cares about any of this shit. All they want to know is, what does the person I'm going to meet look like?
Right. So
period.
These last 2 pictures, I think these are women who do Tough Mudders because they're all painted like in war paint.
Oh, I thought they were Halloween.
And then here's Michelle, who, if you look at that closely, that's her latest kill from a deer hunt. Yeah. And I know I've heard a lot of women say, quit with the fish pics and quit with the hunting pics. Well, guess what, ladies? We don't like it either.
Who would have thought that women are posting hunting pictures or fishing pictures?
Yeah.
I guess they're trying to attack hunters and fishermen.
Right. That's the thing. It attracts, clearly, if you want to be a hunter and a fisher woman, then you should swipe on the people who have hunting and fishing pictures and vice versa. But I'm sorry, to me, that's just not me. And then I'm going to go with one last picture. Is it just too much to ask? Just be nice. And for those who can't see this, there's this woman, Roxy, who's a flight attendant, by the way. And it's a picture of her making a really ugly face and flipping off the camera.
If I didn't see these, I wouldn't believe them. I thought that women were probably much classier on dating apps than men were.
Oh, no. And I picked, like, literally, this took me a total of 3 minutes to pick these because I have collected these pictures over years where I'm like, I run across it and go, I just can't even believe that this is a real thing. And so I would just take a screenshot, and I picked like these top 8 or 9 of them just quickly for this show. But I could do this for like 3 hours going through and just going, are you kidding me? So
we get the gist of, I definitely had not seen these pictures until now. And I think it's unfortunate that we even need to tell people, put up pictures where you look nice, put up a whole body picture, and make sure that you're identifiable in your dating app pictures, or don't bother with dating apps.
Yeah. There was one that I debated putting up where there's this lady holding this brown thing that looks like a cow pie. And I have stared at this picture. I've had it for 2 or 3 years. And again, I haven't really thought about it, but I thought about it yesterday when I was preparing for the show, looking at it, just going, what in the hell is that thing? And what is she trying to show?
Maybe she just wanted people to swipe right and ask her. I don't understand the gimmicks that some people use to get matches, but I imagine that there are people that have found gimmicks to get people to ask them. I mean, it was just yesterday, believe it or not, that Zach, who's my 21-year-old son, was talking to me about his dating profile. And he was saying, I was talking to dad and he was helping me with my prompts. And I felt an immediate pit in my stomach. Because his mom has a dating and relationship podcast, and B, because I know his dad. And so he went ahead and sent me screenshots of his prompts that his father had chosen and the answers that his father had written. And I said, you absolutely sound like a boomer. You sound like a 50-something-year-old man, and you're 21, you're a senior in college. And I said, listen, if you don't want to ask for your mom's opinion, which he has asked for my opinion at least thousands of times, I have written that dating app profile with him. The fact that he threw away what we had worked on and picked these horrible answers that his father had given him, I thought, we both need to see our way out. And I sent it to my daughter, who is 30 and I think she's an expert at dating profiles. She's dating somebody very seriously that she met on a dating app. And I said, listen, if you don't want to take my advice, please don't take your father's advice on a dating profile. Let Nikki help you. And he said, I would love that. And
that's a good idea.
It was ironic that we were doing a dating app profile podcast. He doesn't listen to the podcast because he thinks we're boomers, and that's fine. We're not. We're Gen X. We're the coolest. But clearly, this email that we received is not going to allot us enough time to help men and women with how to write a better profile, but we are going to stick our toe in.
Yeah.
Starting with the profile pictures that Tom just went over.
Right. So let's now that we've talked about that, I want to talk a little bit about the bio itself, what you're writing up.
Sure.
And we've talked a little bit about this. I've made a TikTok about it and received thousands of hate mails over it. The phrase living my best life is a stupid expression. And if you think about what that means, and maybe I overthink things, not maybe, sometimes I overthink things, but if someone is living their best life, that's putting a lot of pressure on the guy to say, oh shit, she's already got her best life. Why is she trying to fix it? And by adding somebody to it. And B, that's really a lot of pressure for me how can I go into that life and actually add value?
Can I jump in?
Yeah, please.
Can I jump in and say that anybody that has living my best life is going to get swiped left on by Tom? But I think that 99% of men are not overthinking that sentence. And that is just a woman's way of letting men know that she's in a good place to date, that she's happy, that she is not looking for somebody to complete her like we were in our teens and our 20s. And we were told when you found the right partner, you were going to feel completed. I think in our 40s and 50s, we can feel complete without a significant other. And I think that's what they're saying with living my best life, that they feel good and they would like to feel better. And that's why they're on a dating app. That's my takeaway as a woman.
Yeah. I know I take things literally, but if you're living your best life and like you just said, they're perfectly happy, well, then why are they looking for something different? And
in your defense, if you're living your best life, you should just be looking somewhere other than a dating app, because honestly, a dating app takes your life down at least 10 or 20 pegs.
Exactly.
So
I couldn't agree
more. Get
off
the fucking dating app, because you are no longer living your best life if you're looking for a man on one. And that's not to say that people aren't meeting on them, because I know that they are. And I think that we can help as far as that goes. But we are both people in our 50s that have been single for 4 to 5 years and been on dating apps the whole time. And we did not find our significant other on a dating app.
Right.
It wasn't for lack of trying.
Yeah. So the next thing I was going to bring up about bios that drives me nuts is when they just leave it more or less blank and just say, ask for more info if you're interested.
I hate that too.
Okay.
That's an automatic left swipe.
Absolutely. How lazy are you?
God.
Yeah, I'm enough of a boomer. I don't like
No,
to
I agree. I met
thumb
my
it out.
ex-husband on Match before they had dating apps, but we had online dating. And I met him on Match, and he had the longest profile I had read. And he wasn't my type because he was younger than me. But he had a lot of physical attributes that I liked. And so I still said yes when he sent me a like, because I really liked what he had said. And so what you say matters. It matters to a lot of us. So say something smart
Yeah.
and witty and maybe a little funny with some
Yeah.
sarcasm.
Well, and then the last thing on my list, and this is a personal thing. This is not, I'm not trying to tell people not to believe what they believe, but when I see pictures of or words to the effect that I love Jesus, um, I'm perfectly okay dating someone who's a Christian. But if that is their, like, the main part of who they think of themselves, like they have a picture, literally a profile picture that says I love Jesus. It's like a greeting card that says I love Jesus. Or if they put it in their profile that Jesus is my best friend and always will be,
Yeah, I've seen a
or
lot of those.
God first, or whatever. It's like, well, good for you. But again, and I've said this before about different things. I dated a woman for, I think we went out 4 or 5 times when I lived in Florida. She's a wonderful lady. In fact, if I saw her on the street today, I'd say hi. I mean, we remained friends while I still lived in Florida. We went out, I think it was 4 times before she came to me and she goes, Tom, she's from Alabama. Tom, I want a man who loves God first and me second. And I just sat there thinking, why would anybody want that? Now, that's just me. Again, I am not dissing her or anybody else who feels that way. I just don't get it. I want to be the first in my partner's life.
She's not for you.
She's not for me. Right.
And that's how I feel about when people talk about their politics or their religion or anything along those lines. 99% of the time they're not for me, and I am grateful that they do that, because they're only going to attract people that are very like-minded to them. So, if that's on a profile, to me it saves me a lot of time. So I'm not going to tell people not to put that, but again, people are going to swipe left if they don't agree with you, and maybe that's what you want, so you're saving time. So there's something to be said for that, but I would never put it on my profile.
Well, I think it comes down to if it's like your number one thing. I mean, it's kind of like reading the ingredients on the box of cereal, right? What's the number one ingredient down to the bottom?
Right.
I don't know why I chose box of cereal for that, but anyway. So if the number one ingredient is I love Jesus, well, then that's like the number one thing for that person.
Right.
And
it
that,
is for some people.
And it
that's
is.
That's
and
the
again,
world. I mean,
good for them. But
so.
if you're a Christian and that's just part of your life, not your entire life, then you probably shouldn't put that at the top, because you're going to get a lot of left swipes from people like me. And maybe you don't want people like me. That's fine. Again, I think it just comes down to putting your best foot forward. Means, who are you trying to attract? And if you're trying to attract someone who only their number one thing is Jesus too, so you're an ancillary part of their life and Jesus is the other 90%.
Right.
Then that's exactly what you should do. But if you just want someone who's a God-fearing man, put the I love Jesus stuff further down on the list.
Right. Right. No, I agree with you wholeheartedly. Some of my pet peeves that are simple is, I know that these prompts are a big deal. They weren't always on dating profiles. I hate prompts. I feel like, just tell me who you are.
What's
tell
a
me
prompt?
Like, what's the craziest thing you've ever done?
So
if you
stupid.
had to choose, my son had a prompt on there that I don't hate, which is, if you could sit down for an hour with one person, living or dead, and have a conversation, who would it be? And I don't think that's something that, like, if somebody answers that question for him, which is what a prompt is, you want an answer, I'm not sure that that's going to make any difference to him in whether he meets them or not. But I love the fact that his answer is my mom, who passed away 3 years ago. And so I can't dislike that prompt, but I think it's unnecessary in a dating app to have a prompt. I think somebody just wants to know who you are. So tell them you are selling yourself. They're walking along in a store, they're looking at what's on the shelf, and the shelf is packed. Things are falling over. It's so crowded. So tell them about yourself and what you are looking for in a partner or a date. Make sure that your pictures are accurate, and never ever lie. Don't say, "Oh, I love boating," if you don't own a boat. We don't care that you have a friend with a boat and you like to go out on their boat. If you say that you feel best when the wind is in your hair out on a boat, we think you have a boat. Don't lie to us. So tell us what you like, but be prepared to have to do the things you tell us you like, because maybe that's why we swiped right.
Yeah.
Because we want to be on a boat too.
You know, and I know that I'm going to get some shit for this, but I think we need to think again. You and I both have the same feeling about dating apps. They're horrible. They've ruined dating. They're awful.
Horrible.
They're very little good that I say about dating.
Bad for your self-esteem.
Yes. In fact, on my phone, when I had it on my phone, there's a folder in there that's just called Nightmare, and all of the dating apps were in that folder. But the thing about it is, it's a meat market. And so think of yourself, unfortunately, and you don't have to like how I'm going to describe this, but think of yourself as a piece of meat. And are you going to take a picture and you're trying to sell yourself? You're not going to put up a rotten picture of meat with maggots in it, or that
a tree.
Or a tree. Yeah. I mean, you're going to put a fresh looking picture, on a nice plate, or, on a grill, or something that looks appetizing.
But don't lie.
And then you're going to write something about it, like this juicy steak, whatever. You're going to write a good thing about what you're trying to sell, because you're trying to sell yourself.
Right. And remember,
again, don't lie.
I say don't lie because we're talking about the pictures. And at the end of the day, remember that if you really hit it off with somebody and they ask you out and you guys get together, the person that walks in for that date needs to look like the person in those pictures, because if you don't, you're wasting both of your time. I don't care how good your personality is. If you don't resemble your pictures, you're a liar. And even if they think you're a great human being, they're going to see you as a liar. And nobody needs to start a relationship or a date like that.
I couldn't agree more. I think that lying on the dating apps, either through the visuals or the bio, and by the way, if you're new to dating apps, don't be naive like I was. There's my boss trying to call. But don't be naive like I was and think that people tell the truth. People are lying on the dating apps.
Right. And so listen, if you've met somebody on a dating app and all of these things have been great, they look great, their profile is great. I know that Tom and I are both big believers in a phone call and a FaceTime before you go on a date. I learned it from a friend of mine. I don't know, 6 months to a year ago, before I was in a relationship. She said, don't ever go on a date unless you've had a FaceTime. And it makes me really nervous and uncomfortable, and I hate it. And I have to put makeup on and I just don't like it. But it will save you a ton of time. If you have a phone call, you'll know how they speak, how they sound. If their voice gives you the ick, you're not going to want to meet them. And then if you have a FaceTime, you'll know that they look like your pictures. And then you're halfway there, because they must have liked what they read because they swiped right, or they didn't read it at all because they just thought you were pretty and they liked your body. You're not going to know until you go on a date.
Somebody on one of our TikToks the other day said that they had a 10 item questionnaire that they ask someone before they even go out. And I thought, oh, well, hey, this is right up my alley because of my list situation. And I said, well, I hope you'll share it with us. And she did.
I read
Did you
that.
read it?
Oh, you would never have swiped right on her.
Not even close, because
I think number 2 was Jesus.
Yeah. I think the first 5 of them were Jesus and God related. And I'm going, wow, good for you. And she said she asks men that on, was it the phone call or the FaceTime? I mean, it was before you even go on a first date.
Good for her.
Yeah. I mean, again, saving time. I'm all for it. But yeah, that is not Yeah, we would not be compatible. Let's just put it that way.
Tom and I wasted a lot of time on dating apps, and I especially don't blame anybody for being on them. I said to my son, "You're a senior in college. Why don't you meet people in real life?" And he said, "Mom, at least if I meet them on a dating app, I know that they're interested in me because they've already swiped right." He said, "It's a lot easier for me to find the courage to talk to them and ask them out if I already know they're interested. And I don't have the courage to do that in real life." And that's what dating apps have created, because if there were no dating apps, kids in college would be forced to meet the way that we met in high school and college, in person. They'd have had to go up to you. A friend could have said, "Hey, my friend likes you." Those organic ways that we have lost, it is a damn shame where we have ended up in 2024.
Well said. I think we call it on that one.
All right. And with that said, we will probably do more episodes on dating apps. I mean, we did name our page The Talking Phase, and we love your emails. And I loved this email, even though, this was a definite short answer to lots of big questions. Please send us your emails at talkingphase@gmail.com. Again, talkingphase@gmail.com. I read them all. I reply to all of them. And as soon as we know if we're going to read your email and when we're going to read your email, we let you know to make sure that you don't miss that episode. And we love hearing from you. So please send them in. Again, talkingphase@gmail.com. I look forward to reading whatever you send us in this week.
Outstanding. Hey, and by the way, guys, I assume everybody listening to this will never miss an episode because they love them all. So thank you guys all for listening. We love hearing from you guys. We love hearing from you on TikTok and Facebook and everywhere else. It's been so much fun. Please take a second. It really helps us out if you rate and review the show. Give us a 5-star rating and write a couple of words about conditional love or shitty siblings or
dating apps,
what you think makes a good dating profile.
What you want us to answer more of.
Yeah, send us some ideas for shows. What do you think we should be talking about? Be sure to share this podcast with your family and your friends. We put out a new episode every Friday. And be sure to follow us everywhere: Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok. We're all over.
Can't get away.
It's hard to miss us. So signing off till next Friday. This is Pam and Tom.
Have a great day and have a great week and happy fall, y'all.